Indonesia's foreign minister has moved to prevent any potential damage to relations with Australia over the pending execution of two of the Bali Nine. Andrew Chan and Mayuran Sukumaran have been sentenced to death for trying to smuggle heroin out of Bali. Speaking to the media a short time ago, Retno Marsudi defended her country's use of the death penalty and said capital punishment is not directed at any one country.
Although we understand the position of the Australian government, yet it should be underlined that this issue is purely a law enforcement issue. A law enforcement against extraordinary crime. A law enforcement by a sovereign country, Indonesia. I would like to repeat again that the decision to impose the death penalty by the Indonesian court is not directed toward any country nor national of certain countries, but it is directed to an extraordinary crimes.
The Foreign Minister of Indonesia, our correspondent George Roberts, joins us now from Bali. George, good to talk to you tonight. What do you make of the fact that the Foreign Minister felt the need to come out and make the statement?
Well, in light of the fact that there have been multiple statements by the Australian Foreign Minister, and indeed there was personal contact between the Australian Foreign Minister Julie Bishop and Retno Marsudi when Julie Bishop rang her late last week, and there have also been public statements by the Prime Minister and many other people on this topic urging Indonesia to spare these two Australians. It seems quite normal that she would react to this and come out and make public statements defending Indonesia's position. The comments she's made this evening are consistent with the comments that she's made previously. Last week she said that she'd told Julie Bishop in multiple communications, explained Indonesia's use of the death penalty and said that that was Indonesia's position, and also again reiterated this line that the Indonesian government is using, that Indonesia is in some kind of drug crisis, it needs to be tackled, and therefore it's taking a hard line on drugs. So in one respect it's a response to what Australia's been saying and also a defence of Indonesia's position. It sees, in the same way Australia sees its legal system, as being a sovereign system that shouldn't be interfered with by foreign countries, and also this is a defence of Indonesia's determination to go ahead with the death penalty for drug smugglers.
George, of course, as you said, she said this before, Australia has ramped up its rhetoric, I suppose, this week in terms of urging Australians to think about travelling to Bali and suggesting potential other retribution. Do you think in some way it's a response to that?
Look, it may or may not be, but look, certainly the amount of public comment that has been made on this issue has intensified as the urgency has intensified this week. As we know from today, there were plans until sometime today to move Andrew Chan and Mayuran Sukumaran from here at Kerobokan Prison off to Nusa Kambangan Island Prison in order to prepare for their execution, and those plans were made as were to go ahead as early as tomorrow morning, but there has been now a delay in that process. So as the urgency intensified, the public comments intensified, and perhaps that's one of the things that's motivated Retno Marsudi to respond to these publicly today.
Of course, at the same time, we have this parallel legal, last-minute legal bid to try and save the two men by challenging the way the clemency was turned down. This delay today that we've learnt, does that in any way assist that legal challenge?
Well, supporters for Andrew Chan and Mayuran Sukumaran, and certainly their lawyers, and Chan and Sukumaran themselves, would be hoping that this delay, which seems uncertain as to how long it will go for, will allow them to let that legal process continue. They're due to go to court, or their lawyers are due to go to court at the State Administrative Court in East Jakarta next week to have this case for an appeal heard. Now, what they're appealing is the process of decision-making on the part of the President. The President last week admitted that he struck out 64 clemency bids effectively without even considering them. So lawyers for Chan and Sukumaran are effectively accusing him of not following due process and due governance, and perhaps even breaching Indonesian law by not appropriately considering each case on its merits. So it's the process that they are disputing in an attempt to force the president into reconsidering the cases of Chan and Sukumaran individually. And of course, the thing they want considered is these two men's arguments that they've rehabilitated themselves and they've actively worked to try and help rehabilitate other inmates.
George, the delay that came about today was also, according to authorities, around technical issues. What do we know about those?
The Attorney General's spokesman, Tony Spontana, addressed the media today and outlined some of the reasons why this delay occurred. The Attorney General himself, Mohamed Prasetyo, told ABC News that it was to accommodate some of the requests made by various entities, including the Australian government, and also to give the families time to spend more time with Andrew Chan and Myuran Sukumaran, their sons and brothers. But it turns out, as you mentioned, there are other technical aspects that have got in the way of going ahead with these executions this week. A team of people from the Attorney General's Department, the so-called execution team, went on a reconnaissance mission to Nusa Kambangan Prison and found that the prison can't accommodate the amount of people that the Attorney General's office wanted to put to death. They wanted to put about 10 people to death, including the two Australians. Now, it turns out that Nusa Kambangan Prison can only accommodate about 5 executions at once in terms of physically being able to carry them out in the area where it's done. And also, there are cells where the prisoners are supposed to be put in isolation. Now, those cells simply aren't ready for these prisoners, so those are two things which have technically just got in the way. There was talk from Tony Spontana of building new cells and new walls and expanding the facilities. That kind of comment, whether it's true or not, whether they will do that, indicates that we just don't know how long this process will go on for, how long this delay could potentially last.
Very difficult times. George, thanks so much for your time.